The Survivor Specialists are back, and today we're doing Survivor 48 predictions and power rankings for episode number 9. For the second season in a row, I am joined by Survivor China winner, I can't say it, Todd Herzog. He is here,
Hello.
and I have to say we put out a post only a couple minutes ago because it's so off for us. Normally do this on Sundays, never do it Saturday. We put out a post not too long ago, and Mitch from this season responded in like 5 minutes and was like, does this mean Todd Herzog knows who I am? Todd, can you confirm that real quick? You know who Mitch is?
Mitch, of course I know who you are. You're an amazing player. Seriously, an amazing player. So, yes, Mitch, I enjoy watching you play this crazy game.
I'm so excited to dive into this season with you because obviously, you were such a strategist on China. And then last season when I had you on and we were talking about Survivor 47, a lot of strategy heavy play going on. This season, we're seeing kind of the opposite, where it's a big dominant alliance that is just kind of steamrolling through the game. It's caused some of the internet to lose their minds, but then it feels like people you just talk to at random on the streets, at events, whatever, they're kind of liking the season. Where are you falling on this right now?
So, overall, I like this season. I do really hope that this next episode, that alliance gets shaken up because
Yeah.
I don't love when an alliance takes over the game and it becomes kind of predictable. So, we'll see. I like the people in the alliance for the most part, but I do like a little bit of a switch up. You know what I mean?
I,
I
I
want
get what
someone to backstab another person from the alliance would be awesome.
Oh, and I had made the argument on a podcast we did earlier this week, and maybe you can kind of shed some light on this or what you think. But I made the argument that because of all the twists in this game right now, the fact that Star just lost her vote, the fact that at Final 12 they split into two tribes, I made the argument that because of these twists and stuff, it's causing people to not feel comfortable making the Jean Robert type boot like from your season or the Jerry type boot like from Australian Outback, where the majority alliance is more willing to say, we have 5. We're at 8. We have a 5-3 advantage. Let's get rid of one of our own that we can't stand anymore. Now it's 4-3 because you don't know if all of you are still going to be able to vote at the next tribal. And I think that's why this alliance is saying, let's just stick to the status quo as long as we can to ensure that we can't just get wiped out because we went too early and then all of a sudden somebody lost a vote or we split into 2 tribes or 3 people are ineligible to be voted for, something like that.
Listen, like, so I get it. Like, I believe alliances work because I had one myself. Me, Amanda, and Courtney. We went to the end together. However, you have to be flexible, is what I think. It makes the game more exciting. So with what's happening with 48, there are way too many twists. There's too many right now. Like, the losing a vote is really getting frustrating, especially when they divide into two different things to go to tribal council and someone's lost a vote. You just don't know what's happening exactly. And it's like, because of that, we lost Thomas and we lost Bianca. And imagine how the game would be if both of those two players were still in. So, like, the losing vote thing, I think is fun once in a while, but it's just like, okay, we get it. This is like happening so often. It's getting frustrating, in my opinion. Calm
I,
down.
I agree with you on that. And I think for this last, the next round of voting for 50, I forget if they said advantages or twists, whatever it was. And it was, do you want a lot or do you want none? And or like very few. And for me, it's not so much the twists that are the problem. It's not the
Right.
advantages that are the problem. It's the fact that they're doing the same ones over and over and over again. Because obviously, like, we were talking about Survivor Gabon. We've been talking about Gabon a lot because we were rewatching it for our patrons. And when you rewatch Gabon, there's a lot of twists in there that you never see again when they rank the players and then they pick the tribes
Yes.
based off the rankings and stuff. The problem is right now it's Justin lost a vote, Bianca lost a vote, Thomas lost a vote, or, Thomas might not have lost his vote, but whatever it was, they were scared of him because of whatever was going on.
Yes.
It's the same thing over and over.
It really is the same thing over and over. And like, especially with this last one where it was the four of them playing together and you could kind of plot out who was going to lose the vote. And it's like, I don't know. It's just so, it gets frustrating because it takes away from the core of Survivor, which is, are you strategic enough to be able to make it to the end? And I understand that, yes, you can still have your workarounds with being in the right group of like voting block or the alliance or whatever if you have lost your vote, but it really is such a powerful thing to have just lost your vote because they stop including them in conversations like we saw with Star. She's just laying in bed because nobody cares to include her in the conversation about who's going home. And so you just see like this flip flop of back and forth of, are we going to pick off Chrissy because she's just kind of there, or are we going to pick off Camilla because we don't necessarily trust her? And it was like, why? Like, too bad they can't go around and include Star and do some sort of crazy power move, but she doesn't have a vote.
Yeah, and in
So
this
she just had,
moment, I still don't think that they would have been able to flip this on one of the big strong five. I think that Kyle and Mitch, I think Mitch actually too. I don't necessarily think that these people were willing to make this flip at this point. And even if Mitch was, I don't think Kyle was willing to do it right here. They know they don't have David. So now you have to get a couple of people on your side to make this happen. But we can't even have that discussion because
right.
Star is non-existent for this episode. And you brought up the point of with this twist, you're getting to watch them decide who doesn't get their vote. And that's frustrating, but it's still better than watching Bianca roll dice until
Yes.
she ends up losing her vote. I'd still rather this. At least there's some strategy, but at the end of the day, I don't need either one.
I agree completely. Like, your vote is a super powerful thing. And I think it would be fun if maybe once a season they had it.
Mhm.
And it was like not just up to or between four people, it was like something else in a challenge. Then you could lose your vote. And then that would be a very powerful thing. Keep it quiet. And like everybody would be curious who actually lost their vote type thing.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It just gets really frustrating because I feel like it takes away from a lot of the gameplay.
Yeah. I agree. And then that's leading to the frustration of some of the fan base. And again, I think I think the fan base is more split than people realize. Cause when I was at the Ron event, a lot of people who aren't, you could just tell like it was older people, whatever, who aren't necessarily online. They're loving this season. Like they're
Yeah.
very into it. The online community hates this season. So I'm in this weird zone of being a podcaster who talks to people who just watch the show, who don't have any online presence. So I hear what they're saying, and then I see what Twitter is saying. I'm like, oh my God, my head's going to explode because they are so out of sync with each other. But I do ultimately think it comes down to there's so many unknowns in Survivor right now that rather than that making people play aggressively, it's actually making them play a little more timid because you're saying,
Yes.
I have this now. Why would I take a risk when tomorrow I could be the one without a vote and I don't want to be the one who goes home without a vote?
See, and I like the season. I really like the cast in general. I think they're some really strong, solid people and players. It's just the twists that are really throwing me for a loop here. It's getting kind of frustrating. But and it is interesting because a lot of people do love the fact that there is so many of these random twists. But does it always have to be lose a vote?
Mhm.
Make it be some sort of other punishment. I don't know what exactly, but it doesn't have to be lose a vote.
Well, and that's what I always found silly. And I talked about this last season or the season before when it was like one person lost their vote and another one got an extra vote. So now you have the same amount of votes anyway. So why not just have everybody keep their vote and
Yeah,
then figure out a different twist to put it? It's kind of like when the idol nullifier came in. It's like, well, rather than having an idol nullifier, just have fewer idols. We don't need a
exactly.
nullifier and an idol. We don't need both.
Exactly. I completely agree. So I think, plus keeping track of who has what, when there's so many, it gets really hard too.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
It
And
just,
I think this is an interesting point from Matthew C. Advantages originally were meant to help those on the bottom. Now they cause the top to play more conservatively. And it's no longer about get yourself out of the bottom position. It's kind of just like you're in the middle position, you be in a power position, and all of a sudden this is your time to go on a journey where you could lose it, or you happen to finish fourth place in a challenge where you need to finish top three, and now you're going to lose your vote.
yes, absolutely. And so we are seeing like this super core alliance, and they are playing really, really like not carefully, what is it, casually? Like they're just like,
Mhm.
yeah, we're good. So, okay. What really bugged me though about it was the fact that David came over and he's like, she's basically our sixth now. But then when Kyle talks about Camilla, he's like, you can't just bring people in.
Mhm.
So it's like that whole core alliance thing with them being so controlling because of all the twists is super frustrating. But you do have a ringleader at the same time.
And who
And
is the ringleader right now,
it's
David?
not Joe, it's David.
Yeah, that's what I think too. That's what I think too, because a lot of people are feeling like this, like what I've seen, and I was doing podcasts with Blake last week, and I was like, oh my God, what I have seen is a lot of people are already complaining about Joe or Eva winning because they're saying it's too predictable. but Joe or Eva haven't won yet. Like that
No,
hasn't taken place. And I don't necessarily know if it's going to. I just don't think a lot of people want to give David the credit as being the ringleader because they do see him as kind of a buffoon, even though he's really not a buffoon. He's playing a smart game right now.
he is playing a smart game, and it's really so like I see why everybody's frustrated with David. I'm frustrated with David. I look at him like he can be a buffoon, but at the same time, I'm like, everybody is listening to what he's saying. So he is clearly 100% doing something correct here
Mhm.
because everybody is just okay with doing what he wants.
Yeah. And and so now here's a wrinkle, and I literally watched this 2 minutes before I jumped on with you. I don't know if you saw the 30-second ad for this week coming up. I know we obviously have the next time on, but did you see the first TV spot from CBS yet or no?
No, not yet.
So it opens up at night with Shaheen over a sleeping Joe saying, Eva's not at camp. So it looks like Eva's going to get caught in this moment going on this advantage search. Now, that could be a whole lot of nothing, but if Shaheen is catching that and willing to say it to Joe, could that potentially be the thing that finally starts to cause this house of cards to collapse?
I hope so. I would love that. See, I love Shaheen. He's my favorite. Him and Camilla. I love the two of them. And so if he can catch on, but I mean, it could instantly put a target on his back because you've got Joe and Eva, and Joe's obviously going to go straight to Eva,
Mhm.
and because they're a team. So I think at the end of the day, it all depends on who gives David that information to see which side he would go with. But I'm hoping that because of that, maybe the alliance will be split up.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. And like I've been saying to people a lot, and I don't want to spoil the power rankings this early, but I've been saying a lot that I feel like Star will go this week, but I don't feel like this core five is the end game of this season. Like Mitch, Mary, and Camilla all have a role to play on
Yes.
this season, in my opinion. I just don't think Star necessarily does. One, because every time Star speaks, she's great TV. And it seems like if she was going to be a deeper player in this game, they'd be giving her more screen time. And two, you look at how Mitch and Camilla and Shaheen all literally with their eyes said, let's make sure it's Star who loses her vote at this
Yes.
tribal council. I think that lets you know Mitch and Camilla are way more in on that than you might have previously believed.
See, I would love for those three specifically to team up and make something happen. But they obviously, like you said, are in on something. This last episode was super frustrating because Mitch seemed so out of the loop of everything.
Mhm.
Because he's not part of that core five. And so, yeah, I can see Star going as well. I mean, I just hope that a big fight erupts and people get frustrated with David. That would be ideal.
So are you on the and I don't really know what the best way to say, but like, are you on the bandwagon on the team of if David were to like run this and win this season, you'd be like pulling your hair out, or would you be like, wow, he dominated this and
I,
that's
uh, I would have to give him props because, like, I can't deny good gameplay. Um, I just don't, I'm not rooting for him, if
Mhm.
that's fair. Like,
Yeah,
I'm rooting for the underdogs. I'm rooting for Mitch and Camilla. And I mean, Shaheen is not necessarily an underdog, but out of the core five, I think he is.
yeah,
So those are, I'm rooting for the people that aren't being carried by this power hungry people. It gets annoying to me because I'm not one of those players.
yeah,
I wouldn't be included in this alliance. So I get frustrated, I get frustrated seeing an alliance like this. I cannot deny that it's a good idea because everybody targets those players, especially come like eighth place, ninth place. We always took them out, or I took them out. And so it's like, I wouldn't be included in this big boy alliance.
yeah.
And so, of course, I'm rooting against it.
Yeah. And obviously like China's my favorite season. I've said that a lot, but it's like, that's the season of the underdog, right? And then you get Gabon a couple seasons later where it's another season of the underdog and they don't necessarily align. But what I have found funny about this season is when you look at the online discourse, a lot of like Mike Holloway chimed in the other day and said, how often do the big physical threats really win? And somebody went at him and said something along the lines of like, well, you won, like literally you. Like a lot of the conversation ends at winners at war. And David has been very vocal in the fact that he hasn't watched pre-Winners at War. He's only watched New Era season. So for David, when he's making these speeches at Tribal, when he's talking about everything, in his mind, the big dudes don't win. Like
Right.
he never saw Wendell win. He didn't see Tony win. Either of us, maybe he watched one, but like he's not watching those seasons. So for him, he's watching Erica, Marianne,
Mm-hmm.
Gabler, who's the old guy, Jam Jam. Then he's watching from 45 to 47, if those are the most recent ones, D, and then Kenzie, and then Rachel.
Yeah.
That's not David. David can't ever be that. So for him, it makes sense why he would be so against those kinds of players.
See, and I cannot fault him in what he's doing because I would do the exact same thing with smaller people.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is a very smart move on his part, but I don't have to like it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he is really smart for it. However, it's like, is he planning on going to the final three with people like Joe and Eva? Because I feel like that really takes his shot at winning way down.
Mm-hmm. And that's where I think that Joe and Eva will be cut before the final three. And I know a lot of people feel like this is getting obvious. Joe and Eva are just going to run this. They're going to win. I think Shaheen, Kyle, Camilla, David all know they can't beat Joe and Eva at the final. They know that. They know they're not going to. Now, Eva has an idol. Now, people are saying, well, why not try to take a shot at Eva or Joe in this last episode when they don't have immunity? Well, it's everything that I said at the beginning of this. If you take a shot at Eva or Joe, now you've ostracized the other and you're at final 9. You could easily be outnumbered 5-4, or even if you have a 5-4 advantage, one person loses a vote, one other idol is found, one extra vote is gathered. Your game's over.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. So yes, they're going to have to take a shot if they do want to, because if Eva or Joe are in the final three, I feel like it's pretty clear as far as editing goes. It also could change based on like how relationships are out there. But that's a story for another day. So it's like if one of those two are in the final three, especially Joe, I feel like he's taking it, period. So if they do not take him out before, then you might as well just write him the check now. But I do agree with you. I feel like they have to realize that. I don't feel like they're stupid. So I feel like they have to be understanding this. It's just, when can we do it?
Yeah.
Because you are going to have one of the two still at camp and they're going to be pissed.
And so when you say that if Joe gets to the end, just from your perspective, because I know you've watched, you're like probably one of the biggest fans to ever win the game. When you're watching the season, are you seeing this as being Joe's winning season? Are you seeing the edgic kind of pointing you towards him? Or do you think they will cut?
Okay. Yes, I do see it. But I feel like it could also be a red herring. So I feel like episode 1, we had this wonderful, like, confessional from Joe where he was like, I'm doing this to make my kids proud. I'm going to do this to show them that they can do whatever they dream of, something like that. And I was like, oh, well, you might as well write him the $1 million check right now. And that was before he had even talked to Eva about like the whole autism and like they became a partner and whatnot. And so I was like, okay, well, now America loves the two of them, and for good reason, because like it is awesome to see. It reminds me of Roger and Elizabeth all the way back in season 2. So, but neither of those two won for the same kind of reason. So I'm like, it could be a red herring in the fact that we love them and we have valid reason to love them, but they can just be America's favorites type thing. So there's a lot of little hints that David could win. Like Shaheen saying, look at that $1 million smile, and him talking about being broke and things like, it's like, that's a lot of like old school winner edit type feel. Even though Jeff said there isn't one, I feel like there is.
There's a winner edit. There's no
There's
doubt.
totally
There's
a
a winner
winner's
edit.
edit.
The fact
So
that, yeah, we can watch these seasons enough and you can see what they're doing. Maybe in the 20s there wasn't, but especially since Erica's win, there's a winner edit. You can see it every time.
Yes. I feel that way. So unless they're really trying to throw us for a loop here, I don't know. Shaheen though, I feel like is starting to get like really good positioning in the game as well. And so he could take it and run if he's plays smart.
Yeah.
Hoping.
I mean, for me with Joe and Eva, the way I look at it is their relationship was going to be shown to this extent, no matter if they were the first two people voted out or if they're sitting at final three together. I mean, what we're witnessing with the two of them is unlike anything we've seen in Survivor, maybe ever. But like your biggest comparison, you went all the way back to season 2. You
Yeah.
probably could have went a little more recent with season 4 with Pascal and Nalia, but that's really it, right? Like you're not getting this relationship all that often. So I do hear what you're saying on that. And so for me, it's like with Eva's story and with who Eva is on this show, as the first player openly with autism on the show, and talking about that and bringing us through her story so well, and then Joe's reaction to finding this out, these people are going to be on your TV. There's no doubt about it. It's got to happen.
Yes, absolutely.
But when you look at the edits that David is getting and Shaheen is getting and Mitch and Kyle and Camilla are getting, you start to say to yourself, okay, their screen time wouldn't always necessarily be there. And that's
Yeah.
why for me, I still feel like the story is one of those players' stories, and that Joe and Eva are just kind of isn't this an amazing relationship? Whether they're on 50 or they're on 52, these people are going to be getting calls in the future to be on Survivor another time together. They could be the Colby and Jerry of you're only going to play if you're playing together.
So, okay, you saying that really makes me think of how Camilla, in several episodes, lets the audience know not many people know that her and Kyle are a final two. Her
Yeah.
and Kyle are ride or dies, which, like you said, I feel like is really saying like we are in it together, and I'm hoping that Kyle and Camilla. I think it'd be freaking awesome if they were to be able to somehow manipulate and strategize their way in and take everybody out, and nobody had a clue, and they do make it to the final 3
Mm-hmm.
or 2. I think it'd be
Yeah.
amazing.
I agree. And I think that's where, for me, this season has so much potential left, right? I,
Yes.
I was talking about how in season 46, at this exact same point, we were snoozing, right? Through for the pre-merge of that season, the first 4 episodes, it is that Purple Tribe constantly losing. Brandon gets medevaced, and we get back-to-back Banu episodes. And then Banu goes home, and we
Yes.
watch the same episode twice. But then Soda goes home, and it's kind of like, okay. And then all of a sudden, it's the blind sides of just idol, idol, idol. Hunter goes at 9 with an idol in his pocket. And then you have, I forget if, I think Venus was 7 and Tiffany was 8, whatever the order is. You start getting those people going out the way that they're going out in this crazy fashion. And all of a sudden, it's one of the best post merges. And I
Yes.
truly think that if Star goes this week, I fear for Twitter, right? I fear for Reddit. I fear for Instagram and TikTok, because Survivor fans are going to lose their minds. But that
Yes.
doesn't mean that the final 8 of this season can't be excellent and amazing, because these players have to now start to target one another. And I think you're right. Kyle and Camilla, they're being shown as the brain of this season. They're being shown as the ones who are kind of able to maneuver and trick people. What scares me is Kyle last week, and you want to talk about winner edit. Kyle last week defends Camilla, doesn't want to outwardly say that he has Camilla as his number 1. And then David immediately gets a confessional that says, I think he's closer with Camilla than he might be with me. Big winner edit energy for David. But also, it's like, is Kyle blowing up his game in your opinion with that?
I really wish that Kyle had a better poker face there, because that was really, really bad. Where he's like, "What? Why?" And it's like, you cannot act like that. You got to keep cool. I get it though. When something is brought up and you go into panic mode, and that is what Kyle did. He went into panic mode, but it really was not stealthy. It was very in your face, obvious that he did not want her to go. Um, I don't know if I don't know if that's going to be a super bad thing. I think so. If you said that the trailer that Shaheen knows that Eva's gone, he talks to Joe. I feel like at some point David's going to find out about this. But David has Mary now, which is a super unlikely duo that I did not see coming. But I'm here for it because I think Mary's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But she's just going to be the sidekick. I feel like that could really make the other alliance members a little upset. Like, wait, why is Mary now in this power alliance? She's not one of us.
Yeah.
And maybe that will make them turn on David, unless I don't know. I don't know. It's all speculation for me at this point. I have no idea what to expect.
It's funny because like I kept saying that it's David's kind of like Gaston at this point, big, muscular, that's your villain that he is. And now Mary's kind of fit the role of LeFou. She's the little
Yes,
sidekick
yes,
who's like really not that bad, but has now teamed up with the most evil person in the village and is trying to get everybody on the Gaston side.
yes.
So I feel like that could be a funny deal. I mean, I never, ever, ever saw that coming. Just like you said, I
No,
never thought in a million years Mary and David, and that seems like a legitimate alliance right now.
and it seemed overnight, like it came out of nowhere, and now I feel like they are BFF. They are together.
Mhm.
It's weird.
And if they were to sit at final three together, it's kind of like, okay, well, who's the third person that they'd want to go with? And that's again where I'm not sitting here being like Joe and Eva are going to run this thing. I think people just need to let the story unfold. I always go back to, Vanuatu and Guatemala and some of these seasons where you had a couple episodes in a row where you're like, oh my God, make it stop. And then all of a sudden something flips on its head. And now
Yeah,
you get this end game that you're just not expecting in any way, shape, or form. And that those seasons on rewatches are so much better because you just allow yourself to go along with the story, knowing what's going to happen rather than week to week going, oh God, it happened again. They voted out Sarge now, and then they voted out Chad. Like, I can't watch this anymore. Like, I feel like that could be the case with this season where, yes, you're losing some of your favorites. But for me, I do feel like I don't want to like shade Chrissy, but from what we saw on TV, if you're sitting here being like, Chrissy was my favorite on this season, I'm like, what about her personality in the real world made you want to say she was your favorite? Because as far as TV, there was nothing there. The editors gave us nothing from Chrissy.
absolutely. Which is kind of unfortunate because she had the right idea.
Mhm,
She had the right idea. She just did it at the wrong time.
mhm,
So like we didn't get to see her play the game. We didn't get to see her personality at all, like you said. And then at tribal council, she starts to argue with these people. And it's like, why didn't you do this at camp with the right people in private beforehand and lay out all of your points? Because it's pretty obvious if you lay it out. I think the main problem is a lot of people don't realize that Kyle is in that alliance.
mhm.
And so, which is great for Kyle, but like that really puts Kyle in an uncomfortable position. But as soon as it's said to the wrong person, it spreads like wildfire.
Yeah. And I agree with you on that. Kyle feels to me like he's the middleman, right? You
Yep.
have David, you have Joe, you have Eva. Shaeen's kind of drifting a little bit. And then on the other side, you have Mitch, you have Camilla, and Mary now we know is with David. But still, it's like if there was going to be a flip, if we were going to see Mary, Eva, Joe, David not make it to final four or final three, Kyle and Shaeen and Camilla would be the ones deciding that was going
Yes. And I feel like that will happen. I'm going to manifest it now.
to happen. You've been
I feel like it
manifesting
has
a
to
lot
happen.
here. I listened to your RHAP earlier this season and you manifested somebody for 50 too. So you're just manifesting, manifesting,
That's what I
manifesting.
do. But no,
Oh,
I feel like Shaheen has a lot of control when it comes to the direction it will go. And I feel like he's smart enough to put it together,
man.
like he already is getting closer to Camilla. He just doesn't know that Camilla and Kyle are also very close. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. And I was talking to somebody earlier this week, and I'm curious if you kind of feel the same on this, but they were saying that it feels almost like everybody's playing their first time, but Shaheen's playing his second. Like it feels like Shaheen is a little bit more in the I had to take my chance, but now I've gotten a little bit ahead, and here's who all my allies are. It feels like Shaheen, and he was supposed to be on 47 or 46. He was the alternate for one of those seasons.
I did
And then
not
he
know that.
ended up, yeah, and then he ends up coming out here. So maybe there is something mentally for him that's kind of clicked a little bit faster than for some of the other players because he does feel like he's got a game awareness that's up here right now.
That's how I feel. And I also feel like Camilla is very similar in that sense, where I feel like Camilla is extremely smart. You
Mhm,
know, she she's like, listen, I may look like I'm 14, but
mhm.
I have lived a full life and I know what I'm talking about. I just watch a lot and I pay attention and I know what's going on.
Yeah, yeah, and she's got that big brain. We saw it under the hood the other day.
Yes.
She's got the big brain under there. Um, So we're half hour in here. So let's start ranking the people and we can keep on going here.
Okay.
Obviously, everybody, you can see the logo behind Todd's head there. He's got Todd's Pop Shop. If you're playing our prop bet game, which I'll give score updates to on Wednesday night, the winner of that is getting one of the pops from Todd, who last year, Todd, you made a Mike Tomlin. Did you think that that's where that was going to go, being that this was a Survivor competition?
I almost hope that it does sometimes because it takes me by surprise and I like being surprised. So you never know. It's always exciting to see what people order is the craziest thing. It's my favorite, especially when they come at me with like something I've never heard of. I like that.
I just think it's so funny that, I mean, you were surprised. I'm sitting here, we're running a Survivor thing. You got Mother Genevieve and you got Andy making his comeback, Rachel
like
wins, Sam's doing all that. And what do I get? Hey, I'm a big Steelers fan. Can I do Mike Tom? I'm like, yeah, I just wasn't expecting you to say that.
I'd like the Steelers coach, please. Like, all right, okay, cool. It's fine by me. I'll make whatever you want. But I also do love making the survivors, so don't worry. Oh, speaking of, look, here's Camilla in progress.
There you go.
Mhm. So yeah, she's being worked on right now.
There you go. Camilla, if you're listening, somebody has asked for you. You
Yeah,
are
I'm
you are
making a
that
proposal.
popular with 5 episodes left that somebody is asking Todd to make you.
Yes.
I love that. All right, well, let's jump into these rankings here and let's start talking about who you think is the safest. Now, again, just to recap this, we are at Final 9. As of now, everybody has their vote. We know that Eva has this note about the advantage, and we know that she has to go at night, kind of like Jeremy Collins did in Cambodia. And we now have seen from the preview that Shailene notices Eva is missing and tells Joe. So I just want to lay all that out there as we now jump in and say, here's who is the safest person, all the way down to who we think ultimately is going home. So I'll let you start it off. Who do you think the safest person this week is?
The safest person this week is going to be Eva.
Okay. And what's the reason? Even though she's been caught, why do you think she's still safe anyway?
Even though she's been caught, I feel like she's got the protection of Joe. She's also got the idol, and whatever this advantage is, if she gets it. So even if she's feeling unsafe, she could play her idol.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's why I would say I think she's the safest.
Yeah, and I don't really have a way to argue with you. So Eva's also my number one. And once you say that, I'm like, well, let me move around mine. And then I'm like, okay, no, I can't do that. She has an idol. She has Joe. And I think even if they want to try to flip something on her, like I think Shailene has to play a little bit of a touchy game here of telling Joe, but not letting Joe know that, hey, this is now a danger and we need to get rid of Eva, because Joe's never going to go along with that.
Right.
I think Shaine's smart enough to know that at this point, but it's still important that he doesn't push that too hard, because that would be a bad thing for his game. So I think ultimately, though, whatever Eva's advantage is just going to be another, piece of ammo for them to use. What
100%. 100%. I don't think that she has too much longer left, personally.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. And I'm in agreement with you on that. I really do think, and I know this is how I try to like pump up the Survivor community sometimes. But if you are one of those Twitter, Reddit, Instagram, TikTok people who's coming over and you listen to us every now and then, just remember, it hasn't happened yet. Don't be mad about things that haven't happened, right? I'm from New Jersey. One of my favorite things to do as somebody from New Jersey is have arguments with people that haven't happened yet, right? You think about like something that's going to happen 2 days from now and you start playing out the entire argument in your head. And then 2 days from now comes, you talk to the person and that argument never takes place.
I do it all the time too. I do it all the time in my head, over and over again. Sometimes it's crazy,
right?
But yeah,
until it sounds perfect. It's crazy. It's crazy. I'm glad that hit Utah too. That's not just a strictly New Jersey thing, because that's like the amount of arguments I've had with people that don't take place is insane. So don't be mad.
And if that argument were to happen, it's never what it was when it was by myself ever. Yeah.
Not even close. Not even close. They say one thing that somehow I didn't think of in the last 15 showers I took, and somehow it's like, what happened here? All right. So let's try to get crazy here then. Who do you have at number 2?
Okay, number 2, I'm gonna go ahead and say Joe is the second safest. Same thing with Eva. I feel like there are the people who would like to take the shot, but I feel like it would not be at one of the two.
Mm-hmm. And so When do you think is the proper time then to take the shot at one of the two? Looking at the numbers, we're down to final 9. At what point do you say now's the moment?
Final 8. That's what I've always
Really?
said is final 8 is when you take out the biggest threat or the biggest physical threat, someone who is not going to see it happen. It's just the right timing. Always, in my opinion.
I love that. I love that. And I think that sometimes we'll see it at 9, but like, if you go back and you look at 46, it was Hunter at 9. And then I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, and I forget the total boot order of these seasons now because some of them blend, but wasn't it Tiffany? Was she 8? Tiffany
I
was
think
8.
I think so. And it's like she was such a beast, you know? And if you didn't do it then, like for us it was Frosty,
Mhm.
and Frosty was at a point where if we went one step further, my alliance could have left me and gone to
Because then
Frosty.
Courtney's going with Frosty.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Because most people would say, well, you got rid of James at 7. So what are you talking about? It's like, no, Frosty had
Frosty.
the social game there that he could have started pulling people. And you give Courtney 3 more days of Frosty and she starts to see the writing on the wall. That might be it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was Tiffany at 8, though, because then it was Venus at 7 and Q at 6. And all of them went home with idols in their pocket. And that was the moment at 8. And then Adam Skyline here says Noelle was also the number 8 on Survivor 43. And people might not say, well, she was the biggest threat. What about Jesse? It's like, no, Noelle was the one who, if she gets to the end, she wins that game pretty much against
Well,
anybody she's
and you're
playing.
just so close at that point to like final 5, final 4, that if you leave this specific type of threat in the game at 8 and make it to 7, then that's where you really are in trouble. I think I've always said it. Someone asked me the other day what the milestones I celebrated when I was playing, because it was like, I want to be, make it to day 3, day 6. Those were the first two. Then day 12, then 15, 21. And then I started saying, as soon as 8th place, if I could make it past that, that was a milestone for this reason.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Why not day 9? Just out of curiosity, because you skipped 9. Was that purposeful?
so yeah, I don't want to be the first one of the first two. That was like always a huge fear. If I knew for a fact if I could make it past day 6, that I could at least make it to like almost merge. So I was like, I feel like people will like me enough at that point to be able to make it to almost merge, if not merge.
Mhm.
So that's why my milestones were very weird.
Yeah. No, I love that, though. I love that, everybody's probably going out there with
And
specific milestones. It's fun.
day 12 is because production actually tells you before you play the game that it is going to be miserable for at least 12 days. So that's why it's a milestone.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I wonder if they tell them now, like, not just taking a dig here for shorter season, but I wonder if it is like for 9 days, this is going to be suffering. Like you're going to suffer through
Probably.
those first, the first early portion of the game, and then things will start to be a little bit different. But look, I'm going to put at number 2 here. I don't care what the next time on Survivor tells me. I don't care what the community tells me. I don't care. I think David is the second safest person. I'm putting him at 2. I think
Okay.
David, we were saying earlier in the season on one of our recaps, it was after we heard about David with the car and his dad's house, and then talking about his girlfriend and all of that. And then that tribe didn't go to tribal council. And then the next week, we hear about the girlfriend again. Me and Will, we were recapping the episode, and we were like, he is going to win the season. Like they're giving him personal content that is irrelevant to the story taking place. And his tribe keeps winning. So why are we getting this? And they're making sure David keeps getting stuff. And then I watched last week's and Camilla saying the thing about some people are doing really bad jury management. Camilla's calling him an idiot. Those are obviously very bad things. But also, if David sits next to the right people, he still has a chance. I don't think David is the number one target right now. I think that if you want to flip it on its head, you should go after Joe or Eva. If they're not going to flip it on their head, then they're just going to go after Star in all likelihood. Mary wants to be with David. Joe's not booting David. Every single sentence that David said at Tribal Council last week, while Chrissy was getting pissed at him and he was getting pissed at Chrissy, Joe is sitting next to David, just nodding his head 1,000 miles per hour to be like, yes, 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 yes. Joe, Eva, Mary are not flipping on him, and then he has himself. That is 4 people plus an idol plus an advantage. He doesn't go home this week, so he's my number 2.
That's fair. That's completely fair.
Yeah. So,
And yeah, those are some really good points.
and James Barber says he also has high immunity chances. Like this guy has it working for him right now.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely does. I just don't like it, but I can't. It doesn't matter if I like it or not.
Little do I know, Todd's half the faceless accounts on Twitter right now that I'm like half roasting, right? Todd's the one over there being like, I hate this man.
No,
uh,
I don't know what it is. Like I don't hate him. I don't hate him. I don't love the guy.
mhm.
But that's fine. That's not my place
Yeah.
to love or hate. I've never met him, so I don't know.
I will say I've met him a couple of times. He's very nice. And I will say at the Ron Clark event, when he came down, he got one of the loudest cheers there. And his cast clearly very much
People
likes
love him.
him.
People
Yeah.
love him.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I thought was funny too is people find him to be funny.
Mhm.
I don't know what it is that is funny about him. I don't get that humor, but obviously people like him, you know? And that's great.
Mhm. I can't wait to see where you have David ranked. All right. Who do you have at 3?
At 3, I am gonna say David because
Mhm.
I don't think that he's going to go home this week. Um, I think that he's just in too much of a good position. I feel like everybody is going to start talking about making a big swing before actually making a big swing.
Mhm.
So I agree with you on that. I do think that he is safe.
Mhm. Yeah, I would just be floored at this point if it was him. And my number 3, I'm actually not gonna go Joe here. I'm gonna go Shaheen. Even though Shaheen is putting his neck on the line a little bit here by telling Joe, I do think that what Shaheen is doing in this moment is more of saying to Joe, we got to make sure nobody else notices this. I think that's how the rest of that conversation is going to go. It's going to be Joe, Eva's not here. Then it's going to be we got to talk to Eva. We got to figure out what happened. We got to make sure she's not lying to me as Shaheen. And then I'll figure out how to tell David. And when he has that line of David, welcome to the party, I think that's him telling David, like, Joe and Eva are a little tight here. And that's David being
Yes,
like,
okay.
really? I think that's, I'm probably reading too much into that, but that's where I think it's going. That's my fan fiction version.
Okay. I can get on board with that though.
I hope that I haven't made this like a better episode than it is. I'm giving people hope here, and then they're dropped on their head.
You know what? It's fine if so. That's totally fine. Um, okay, so we're at what, 4 now?
Or
So I'm gonna say Kyle.
okay, that's also who I have it for. So we're in the same boat on that.
Yeah. Kyle, I feel like he's still there with everybody. I feel like Camilla has a higher chance of going before Kyle at this current moment. So that's why I would say Kyle right now.
And I think too, a lot of times when we look at like, a mistake being made, like Kyle last week, like you're saying bad poker face. And I'm worried, oh man, dude, like that's not a good way to be answering this question. And a lot of people were giving David a hard time where it's like, you can have Mary, but he can't have Camilla. It's like, well, David's telling everybody he has Mary. Kyle's trying not to tell people he has Camilla, which I think is what the disconnect is there. But we've actually seen in the new era a lot more of the blemishes of winners being shown. There were a couple of seasons there in the 30s and the 20s where it was like, isn't this the most perfect person to ever play? Like, we're not going to show the issues. And I
Yeah.
do feel like Rachel, it was very well known. She goes home at final 12 last season where Tiana goes home if that advantage isn't played for her. And Kenzie had a lot of blemishes. I mean, there were a
Yes.
lot of things in the pre-merge. The way her and Banu, they would never show that in the older seasons of just
Yeah.
like the way she dismissed Banu. So they're starting to show the blemishes a little bit more. This is a cast with a lot of blemishes to show.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, okay, so I feel like up next. So I'm gonna say Shaheen next. Um the only thing that I have like that my fear would be is if Shaheen talking to Joe scares Joe. And then
Mhm.
Joe and Eva and David and Mary were to do something and turn on Shaheen. I
Mhm.
just don't see that necessarily because of this loyalty thing that they keep talking about. So I feel like Shaheen is safe.
Yeah, and I mean, we have the same top 5 just in a different order because then I put
Yeah.
Joe at 5. I do think, like, when people are complaining about predictability, blah, 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 I see that,
Yeah.
right? And Mitch said it at the Ron Clark event, we're playing for $1,000,000. We don't really care what's entertaining. We are playing for $1,000,000. And it's easy for, keyboard warriors or whatever to sit there and be like, "Oh, but you gotta be like, you gotta make the move. You gotta do whatever." If you're in a good spot, you're in a good spot. Be in the good spot.
Yes.
I do think though, Todd, I have you on here for the episode 9 predictions of power rankings next week. I'm gonna have somebody else. That person next week might be coming in for talking about, hey, this is when the explosion is gonna hit, and it's gonna be a matter of, where does everybody go after that?
And I hope so. This episode, we saw a little bit of tension growing, right? That's what's coming. I think if it doesn't happen this episode where they start to vote each other out, I feel like it's going to build enough to happen because 8, like I said, is the big number
Yeah.
to start
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah.
If you haven't started already, that's when you start.
Yeah. And speaking of, if you haven't started already, where do you start? What was your take on Chrissy with the whole argument of we got to start playing the game here? Do you think was that? I understand some people. I was kind of saying, well, she's directing that at the people who already played the game and got in the alliance. Was she directing that at the people in the alliance who might have, that she's trying to pull over? Was she directing that at the Stars and the Mitches and the Marys and all of that? What do you think?
That's just it. Is I feel like she was saying it so that everybody could hear, but that's where I was like, why did you not do this at camp with Star and with Mitch? And why did you not do this away from the alliance and give your valid points to the people who matter in this vote?
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't wait until tribal council to cause a scene because it's not going to do any good. It's just going to make you look like you have a big target, and that's not going to make people join up with you.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't know. I was pissed me off.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, we'd all rather watch chaos, right? But it's one of those, it's so hard because I put this out on social media earlier. I'm like, if this alliance dominates, do we give the same amount of credit to the winner from this alliance as we do to Kim Spradlin? And the reaction was kind of no, but it's like, well, why? Because you like Kim and you don't like some of the people who are in this alliance, which I think is just kind of a little crazy.
people don't like what he said about the alliance, and that's just it. Is I understand and I can relate to why you do not like what he said, but what he said about making an alliance with the strong people is a great idea for him.
Mm-hmm.
It makes perfect sense. I don't like it, but that doesn't mean that it's not right.
Yeah. Because I mean, if you go out and you were to play another season of Survivor, you're still going to make the pitch to people, I would assume, and I don't want you to spoil your season if you ever go back out, right? But it's like you're probably going to be making the pitch to people of, let's find some smaller. Look, I'm small. We're small. We don't win. Like,
So
this is
you
bad.
think.
Yeah,
that's what I played in China, though, but I couldn't do the same thing. I would have to play the exact opposite.
Mm-hmm. So actually, you're going to hit James's workout plan. Is that what you're hinting at here?
No, I would have to find the biggest targets.
Mm-hmm.
The other people who are bigger targets than me, because they never want to align, and that's the problem. Is they always go for each other. The big targets always target each other. Why? Why can't you just work together instead?
That's what we're seeing right now.
Like, yeah, exactly. But like, I'm talking freaking Sandra and Rob and Tyson, like the people and Tony, like instead of working together, they target each other. And so instead, I would have to find the people with the biggest names, make an alliance, but then have a side alliance of the underdogs.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I hope nobody listens to this. When you get out there on like, I'm going to assume no 50 because it seems like there's not winners. But, when you get out there for like 52, 54, 55, I hope that you play with a bunch of new eras who are like, I've never watched China. This is great.
That would be wonderful. They're like, who is this guy that could be our dad?
Come on. What are you at 39 here?
40.
Come on. Oh,
I'm 40 years old.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I still don't believe it.
Mind blowing. It's anyway.
David, just to put this in perspective, everybody, I think David on this season is 38.
Yeah.
So Todd and David are now in the same archetype of casting of like, sorry here, but like middle-aged man.
No, I'm older than David. Okay.
Yeah.
I am older than this guy, which is crazy to me.
Crazy.
Because I still feel like I'm 23, but I am definitely not. Like, Eva could be my kid. That's bizarre.
I do like the idea of like you getting on a season with David and being like, David, we got to team up because the old guys never win. Men over 40 don't win.
They never win.
Oh,
Did you move out of your dad's front yard? Okay.
Perfect. Let's make this happen. Who do you have at number 5? Or I'm sorry, not 5. You had Shane at 5. Who do you have at 6?
At 6, So I have Star, Mitch, Camilla, and Mary left, right? So number
Yes.
6, I'm gonna go ahead and say Camilla.
Okay, good. I'm glad that you went a different route than me because I have Mary and I was really worried we were just going to have the same thing for the rest of this. So I'm glad we didn't do that.
Yeah, no, I think I would say Camilla because if there was something to happen with this alliance, it would be like prove that Mary isn't that important to you type thing.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, I'm going to put Mary at 6. And my reason is because I think ultimately David is more powerful in the alliance that needs to survive this one last episode. Like this alliance needs to get through this episode. As you keep saying, 8 is more important, but even more so, this alliance gets through this episode. Then they can start, how do we want to maneuver this? And I think Mary is so integral to David's game right now that Kyle and Camilla, if they wanted to flip it and decided to boot Mary, at that point, why are you not just booting David? Unless he's wearing the
Yeah,
immunity necklace, which then would make sense. But I think you almost have to wait to take your shot until you can take your shot at David. You can't take your shot at David's sidekick. That doesn't do you
right.
any good, you
It,
know?
it just pisses him off.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. LeFou survives Beauty and the Beast, right? Gaston doesn't. There's a reason for that.
yeah.
So,
Okay, so 7,
mhm.
7. Mary
Okay.
for the same reasons as Camilla type thing. It's the sidekick.
I'm actually going to go Mitch here as
Okay.
my number 7. I'm actually going to put Mitch ahead of Camilla, and then I'm going to put Camilla at 8, and I'm going to put Star at 9. But my reason for putting Mitch ahead of Camilla is I think that if they are as sketched out by the fact that Kyle wants to work with Camilla as this last episode made it seem, if that starts to worry David, if that starts to worry Mary, if that starts to worry Joe, Eva, and then maybe even Shahin, they would go after Camilla before they would go after Kyle, in my opinion. And right now,
Yes. Oh yeah.
Mitch could almost be somebody to pick up and say, come join us and be one of the people who works with us. That's going to get you to final 6, Mitch. Now, how do you get to final 5? And now Mitch can say, I can navigate this game a little bit. Now, all of a sudden, people want to work with me. Because to me, if there were to be a Chris Doherty, Danny Boatwright type player on this season, it's Mitch. Mitch is the one to me where he's the leftover who then suddenly starts to be able to piece everything together and win the game. But I
Yes.
ultimately think that we just ranked everybody all to say like this is a pretty obvious star boot this episode because
Yes.
nobody. Once I saw Shahin and Mitch both working against Star along with Camilla, I said, so Star has nobody at
Yeah.
this point in the game. She has nobody.
0.
Yeah.
So, and okay, and I agree completely with Mitch. I don't think he has any chance of going home at all. Um, I feel like Mitch wants to play the game so bad. He wants to be in these conversations, but these people aren't letting him in. So I feel like what's going to happen is Shaheen and Kyle and Camilla team up with Mitch.
Mhm.
That's what I hope happens at least.
And I could see if that were to happen and Mitch were to sit at final 3, I could see people being like, Mitch, how did you do this to all of us? And then Mitch being crowned king of Survivor 48 because
Yeah.
they would be impressed by the fact of we were all saying Mitch isn't even that. We're not even worried about Mitch. Whatever. Mitch has no agency in this game. And then all of a sudden he gets to the end and he's had to backstab nobody. And then, I mean, we know he has a good story. We know how long he's wanted to play. We see that in episode number 1 where Jeff says, what took
Yes.
you so long? And he says, I've been applying for 15 years. What took you so long?
I see, and that's the thing. I think this is why I have a hard time with the alliance. So, like, is we have some really incredible players that I want to see play, but they can't because there's just nobody who wants to budge,
Mhm.
and it's frustrating.
And so obviously we just did our power ranking of, how you think this episode, who's the safest, who's going to go home. And I'm assuming you have Mitch at 8 because you just said you don't think he actually goes home and
Yes,
Star's 9. Yeah, yeah.
yes.
But so let me ask you this then, and I never ask this on here, but if you were to actually say who your contenders are, like who are your top 3 in order of who you actually think will win this season?
Okay, I think it's going to be okay. I don't know out of the 3. I'm gonna give final 4. I think it's gonna be
Okay.
Shaheen, Kyle, Camilla, and Mitch.
So you think that alliance is going to end up overthrowing David, Joe, Eva,
I
and
think
they're all
so.
going to be out. Okay.
I think so, because of the fact that of the little things that they throw in, of we're ride or die, we're final two, and like them picking up on Shaheen and Camilla being close together, things like that, and then Mitch saying like I felt like I was just not included in this, but then he had such a positive earlier edit that it's like right now he is a complete free agent and they're going to need it.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
But I feel like
look, and
I
I
feel
was
like
just
there
gonna
just has
say,
to be more to Camilla and Kyle. There has to be
mhm,
more.
it's starting to feel like I was just talking about with our Patreon, we were watching Gabon and then we just watched Token Chains. So we've been going every season in order for our patrons there. So we're doing Token Chains. Camilla and Kyle are kind of getting that JT Steven thing of
Yeah.
like they're biding their time and they're slowly weakening the numbers that they don't need until they get down to who they do need. And JT and Steven, how much talking did they do about we got to keep coach happy, but man, I don't like this guy. I mean, even at final three, they vote out Taj at 4. They get to the end with Aaron. Aaron's all excited, and they're like, man, we are suffering that we just kept Aaron in this game. We do not like her. We don't want to listen to her be happy. This is awful. And you can see that with Kyle and Camilla. I mean, Camilla is now called in the preview for this week, she's calling David an idiot. In last week's episode, she's calling David an idiot. So if she's calling David an idiot over and over again, that does start to kind of fit into how people felt about coach a little bit.
Yes, exactly. So I mean, I just if they don't pull it off and I'm eating my words, like then that sucks. But I just feel like they've got something coming. Something big has to come from the two of them soon.
And again, there's your light at the end of the tunnel, everybody.
And
Todd is,
I feel like it's going to be the two of them coming together and getting rid of Eva. That is what I think is going to happen.
and that's what I was going to say. An idol is not dangerous if the person with the idol has no idea it's coming. And
Exactly.
I could even see what's fascinating is I could even see Eva getting blindsided, Joe going shortly after that, and David still sitting in final four with all of them, right? Like David, Camilla, Kyle, Mary, maybe. I could see something like that taking place, but I am on the same side as you that Joe and Eva are not going to win. And like I texted my parents the other day, because again, I like to get like the online perspective and the not online perspective. My parents are in their 60s. They're not paying attention to what's going on online. They don't care, right? Like they're doing their day to day. I texted them, I said, who's your favorite on this season? Joe and Eva. There wasn't even a question. It was Joe and Eva.
Joe
and
and
my
Eva.
mom actually,
Joe and Eva.
My mom threw in David as a third, and I was like, holy shit, mom, where did that come from? But when it's Joe and Eva, Joe and Eva, Joe and Eva, and that episode where Joe and Eva had their moment, this is the most watched episode of this season, and it might be one of the most watched episodes of the last couple seasons.
Yeah.
And the ratings went up the week after that. Survivor ratings don't generally go up episode over episode. Normally, as the season progresses, it goes down, finale hits, and then it goes up. They went up after that. People are into that dynamic. They're into that relationship. And I think that's why some of the online community is getting blindsided by they're going to win. And maybe I'll be eating my words. That could happen, but I'm happy to hear you're in agreement with me here that it doesn't seem like that's where it's going.
I agree with you, but here's the thing. It's kind of like James on my season. The world loved James. Mm-hmm. They loved him. Everything was like happy, fun James. And then we blindsided him and they were like, we hate you for that.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like is going to happen with Joe and Eva. I don't feel like anybody wants to, they love them as people, but they don't want to sit next to them in the final three.
Yeah, exactly. And nobody's willing to give up $1 million out of this group. They all need it. They all want it. They all are in, a portion of their life. Nobody's donating this money to veterans. Okay. That's not happening. With this guy. Yeah.
So I don't know. I just feel like as far as the game players go, and we've got game players left in the game, they don't want to bring them to the end.
Mm-hmm. All right. And I know we got to wrap this up, but so you said those were your 4. Who do you think ultimately will be if you had to say right now, like one person, who you think it would be?
I feel like Shaheen.
Okay. That's back to back. Ron Clark said Shaheen last week too. So we were all over the map. Saul said Shaheen. Lauren O'Connell said Mitch. JD said Joe. Gordon Holmes said Thomas. That didn't work out. Rome said Camilla or David. Gabe said Joe. So we've been kind of all over the place a little bit.
Yeah. So I feel like it's gonna be Shaheen. Just because I don't know. I get really frustrated saying this. I'm always bad with winner picks too, though. Mm-hmm. So my first winner pick initially was Camilla. Mm-hmm. That was at the beginning, and she's still in it, which is big for me. Mine never make merge, so let's go.
Don't be Todd's winner pick. last thing here, because obviously last season when I had you on, we talked a lot about who would you want to see on 50 from your season, who would you want to see on 50 all time, blah, blah, blah. I know you're probably following along with some of the, rumors that are going around. Are you just eating this stuff up right now? Like, are you loving what you're seeing? Are you living and dying by the updates, knowing that they might be real, they might be fake? Like, what's going through your head as a day one fan?
I love the idea that there is so many old school players. Like, I love the idea that they're going all the way back. Do I agree with all of the choices? Not necessarily, but I honestly don't have a ton of complaints that I'm seeing.
Yeah, that's how I feel too.
And at the end of the day, I'm just glad that if there's not going to be a full tribe of winners, don't have any winners.
I
Do you
agree.
know what I mean? Don't have any winners. I'd rather see people get out there and play, but I would rather see people who haven't played a whole bunch of times.
So there's
But it's
been
50.
there's been some discussion that there's like 3-4 time players in there, but then also some of the 3-4 time players that they're saying like we haven't seen necessarily maybe since Heroes versus Villains, or we haven't
Like
seen
Amanda.
All Stars. Yeah, I mean,
And I would love to see Amanda play. So I can't say that I don't want to see multiple time players because that would just be being hypocritical. I guess I just don't like. I love Sari, but we're about to get her on Australia versus the world. I don't care to see her on 50.
Yeah, we saw her win on the Traders. We saw her on Snake in the Grass. Like, we know nobody's going to let her win. They're not going to let her get to the end.
Yeah, that would just be stupid on their part.
Yeah.
Like, so, I mean, while I love her, I don't care to see her on 50. I don't. Colby, I don't care to see on 50. But I get it. It's Jerry and Colby. And I think that's a great dynamic to add, maybe. Sean Rector, please give me Sean. I would love that.
Yeah, I know they're talking about potentially that he might have been in. The rumor is he might have been in the last cut, which would make me really sad.
It would make me really sad. It would, because I mean, obviously, we see these few people at the very end, like potential ones, and I'm like, okay, well, if they are cut or not, who knows? But that I just don't want to see him replaced with like someone like Boston Rob. You know, like I love Rob.
Honestly, at this point, like Ozzy for me, because I've seen Ozzy so many times in
Yes.
his Game Changers game. It's like there was nothing left.
Yeah, just stop doing that.
Yeah.
But I love some of the, like if Genevieve is there or Andy or who else? What are some of the other names that I'm skipping over?
I mean, from 46, Q was one that seems to be coming up a lot.
It would be great. I mean, I can see them getting rid of Sean if Q is there.
What do you think about the rumor that potentially Say from this season might, be in the discussion here?
Potentially what?
In the discussion, Say.
I don't see why.
Okay.
I think that if she went a little bit further, absolutely. But like we have other standouts that I'm like, why her? She was fun to watch. She was great television. I won't lie. I enjoyed her, but I don't see why her.
And for me, Say feels like if there's a new era all-star shortly after 50, put her on. But
yes,
like, do you really
100%.
want a non-jury, final three player?
It doesn't make sense to me. So I don't know. I'm like meh about that. Who else was there? From season 1, we had
well, there's discussions of potentially Jenna.
I would love that. Bring them both. Jervis, I mean, okay, Jenna, yes, please bring her. Jervis, I like Jervis, but we already had that.
Yeah, we got it in Blood versus Water. We saw him get to the end. He doesn't have much game there. I mean, there's talk with Colby and Jerry that potentially is Elizabeth in the conversation. I would watch Elizabeth play again.
Would she do that? I can't imagine.
She turned him down so many times.
Yes. I cannot imagine her saying yes. If she said yes, that would be iconic. That would be wild. Like, anyway.
Yeah. I just feel like, Elizabeth. And I think that's like the name almost to end on here is like Elizabeth. Elizabeth turned him down for All Stars. She turned him down for Heroes Villains. She has turned him down left and right. I'm sure there were other times that she turned them down too. But I mean,
of course, she's on The View or whatever, right?
Yeah, she was. I don't know if she still is. I have no idea. But it's like, if Elizabeth played though, like holy shit, I'd watch that.
Yes, absolutely.
Please.
She wouldn't go far though. People wouldn't like her, I don't think.
Yeah, I know. I could see that for sure. Or it could just be like as you were talking about earlier, get my small people. It could be, hey, we need some old schoolers. Jerry, Colby. Imagine Jerry, Colby, and Elizabeth in an alliance.
I can't even imagine.
48 seasons later.
I couldn't even imagine. Good times. I mean, I could make a list of 200 people I'd like to see play again, but
Mhm, mhm. As this is all going on, is there like one name that like feels like might be in the mix, and you're just like, please, for the love of God, like make that person be on my TV?
um, I want to see Genevieve again. And I know she's new school, and that's so not me, but I love Genevieve. I thought she was so wonderful. Um, from old school, Amanda. I have to say Amanda because I haven't even spoken to her in years. I don't know what she's doing with her life. I want to know more about what happened to one of my best friends. Like
Mhm.
she's just gone. So, like, yes, please, Amanda. And I love Jerry. I mean, Jerry is a person. She's freaking awesome. I would love to see her again. Oh, I don't know. Like I said, Sean, I would love to see. Gosh, what other real quick, tell me who I'm missing because we had Sari was Stephanie was one of them, right?
Stephanie was one who's in the mix for sure. It seems like. Who else? Chrissy Hoffbeck from Heroes, Healers, Hustlers seems like
I'm
she's very
I'm
much in
down
the
with
mix.
that. I
Yeah.
like Chrissy.
It seemed like maybe Sydney from Co-Wrong was in the mix. Sydney Gillen. So yeah,
Really?
yeah,
Oh wait, yeah. For a second I thought you meant Sydney from like 45 or something. Sydney, yes. That
yes,
Sydney would be awesome because she was a lot of fun. Um, and she's a freaking beast. Like, let's be real.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I don't. Oh man,
There's all like if you here's a question for you. Like if you got like a Penner again, would you be excited to see Penner again? Or are you kind of like we've seen
I'm
Penner?
fine. I'm fine without that. Like, I like Penner, but I'm fine without it. Like, I'm fine without Stephanie. I'm fine without Sari. Like, because of the fact that they did Traders and Sari was on Big Brother and she's on
Yeah,
Australia versus the World. Like, it's enough of that. I'm fine
yeah,
without it.
hmm
Um, give us, some more of these players that like Natalie Bolton would be fun.
yeah,
Um, I don't know. There's
yeah.
just a laundry list of people I feel like could be really exciting to
And
see play again.
and I see this stuff that's circulating all the time, and I'm just like, man, like I want to get so caught up in it, but I'm just like, I can't allow myself. I need to just wait and see because I can't get overexcited about holy crap, here comes Sean Rector to play with Colby and Jerry, and they're gonna play with Genevieve and Andy and Q.
Right?
And that's gonna be and then I'm like, but then if that doesn't happen, it ends up being like Ozzy, Sari, Boston. I'm just gonna be like, okay, like calm down, calm down.
I feel like there's the list of the legends, the ones that we've seen 15 times. Let them have their own season to
Yeah.
battle it out. That's fine. Give us some more people that we just have not seen on our screens over and over and over again. And it would be so exciting, I think. It could just be so fun. Like the fact that Spencer Bledsoe was in the mix and he got the call saying he was cut, like I would have loved to seen Spencer play because he's
Mhm.
since moved to Ecuador and changed his name and done all
Yeah.
sorts of crazy stuff with his life. Like he would be so fun to watch now.
Yeah.
It's
I
just
Here's what my hope is. My hope is that with the interest that Survivor and CBS have gotten throughout this process, is that they put together the 50 cast, and then Jeff and the rest of production sit down and they say, okay, 52, not as big of a deal. It's not 50. It's not this big. CBS wants to have more control over it. And these other people that were showing so much interest sit down and say, we're in. And Jeff goes, all right, let's now put together the cast of, because think about Game Changers, right? Game
yeah,
Changers coming on the hill of Second Chance. Second Chance, Troy, Zam, Brad, they don't make the cast. Here they come for Game Changers. Here comes
yeah,
a bunch of other random people. I would be ready for a mishmash season as a non-celebratory season because I do understand with 50 CBS, the network trying to push big, 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 big players as much as
yes.
they can. But if you get to like 52 and Jeff's like, here's who we really wanted to cast and we couldn't do it. And now Sean Rector comes out and
Yeah.
now you get Sean Rector playing the game with some of these other people who maybe only played once or twice or whatever it is. I'm all about that. I'm all
Yeah.
about that. I would watch that 100%.
Well, because I heard that Jeff wanted second chances too, right?
That's what it seems like. Based on
Like
what we're seeing, that's what it seems like.
52, I'd be all about it.
Yeah.
Let that happen. That'd be freaking awesome. Because I do understand, putting the huge legendary names on 50, but that's when I stop and say, like, okay, well, if you've got freaking Sari and Stephanie and Jerry and Colby, why say? No bad negativity towards Say because she would be awesome to watch again, but that's not the same level as Sari, and
Yeah.
not yet at least. Put her on 52 and then let her get there.
Yeah. I think we're going to get 2 or 3 returnee seasons coming up. 50 is going to be a big one. And I think that there's a lot of people, Jeff and casting, are being forced to cut almost at this point, that they're saying, we got to
Yeah.
get them back. We got to do it. These people are ready and they're hungry, and let's make it happen. And now you got the anger
Like
from some of these
Jesse and
new era players.
Carolyn.
Yeah, you got some of these new era players who are getting cut at the last second that are pissed that they might have lost out on their second chance here.
Yeah.
And now you're going to say, hey, let's make this happen. I mean, Karen, you talk about at the Ron Clark event, you would have thought that I don't know who the new era person, Sydney Sweeney, is that who it is? Like, you
Yeah.
would have thought that the biggest actress of all time had just walked down the stairs of that event when Carolyn came walking down the stairs.
I believe it completely. People love her. I'm honestly still surprised. There has to be some sort of underlying reason there, like conflicting with Peacock or whatever, with traders.
There
You know
has
what
to
I
be
mean?
something.
Because, like, it's Carolyn, for crying out loud. If
Yeah.
you think New Era Survivor, she's number one.
Yeah. She is the person of the new era,
Yes.
right? Like, she is. Because they've all played once except for Bruce, who played for 5 minutes and then played again.
Right.
They've all played once. Carolyn is the one that if you say, who do you think of from seasons 41 to 48? She
Carolyn.
is who you're going to get most of the time, almost every time, probably.
And I mean, she's freaking phenomenal television. Let's be
Oh, yeah.
real. So she needs to come back. I want to see her back.
Yeah.
But
all right. Well, I'll let you go. I got to throw up this last thing here because it's a super chat. And you got to show them worth playing for. I recently showed my friend Survivor China for the first time. We love you, Todd. There you go, Todd.
thank you. I love you too.
Everybody, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give us a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Let us know what you think is going to happen on this episode. If you're also with us and think it's going to be a predictable star boot, let us know what you think is going to happen for the rest of the season. I'm very curious what you're all thinking. Otherwise, become a patron, patreon.com/thespecialist. Like I said, we're finishing up Gabon actually tomorrow or on Monday. That's our last episode of Gabon. And then we're doing all token chains coming up for the next month. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We're in the great part there. So go ahead and check out Patreon. Think about becoming a patron over there. Otherwise, thank you all so much for listening. Thankfully, Australian Survivor is over. So the next time you're going to hear from me is Wednesday night. And I'm so happy about that I'm back to covering just one show. Todd, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you again. That was a lot of fun.
See you later, man.